Today we're going to be talking about cell size, which in terms of AP curriculum is 2.3. Very important principle and concept in biology. The cell is going to be very much limited in terms of how big it can be, and I hope that will be clear by the end of this. So let's get into it. Alright, so first and foremost, a good question to start out with is how big can these things get? We know that cells are the basic component of everything that's alive, and we have some tremendous diversity in terms of the cells on the planet, but what would be the largest one that exists? And this, of course, a hint. This is a Canadian goose egg, but this egg really is representative of one of the largest cells on the planet, if not the largest. Anybody want to gather a guess? Yeah, so an ostrich egg, as it turns out, is an unfertilized ostrich egg is the largest cell on the planet. There are some pretty cool cells that get pretty large, like the chloroplast in our fish tank, and also you guys a muscle cell. Those can be multinucleated and be pretty long. A nerve cell can be over a meter in length, but in terms of diameter, most of those cells are pretty narrow. So overall, ostrich egg, largest cell on the planet. So that begs the question: why do these things have to be small? I mean, we use a microscope to look at them, and we talk about our cells in our bodies as millions and millions of them. And why do they have to be small? So let's get into this a little bit. Okay, so we have a cube over here and a cube over here. This is probably the most simplistic example we can go through to try to explain why cells have to be small. Okay, so this cube can add an input units here, and at this point it's irrelevant, but I'll try to add those in later to make it a little bit clearer. But this is 1, 1, and 1. Okay, so we're going to get into surface area and volume, and for right now I just want you to know that all sides of this cube are 1 unit, and over here of course is double, so this is 2, 2, and 2, and hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's look at a real world question here. We got an escape room which needs to be popping up all over the place, and look at this example here. If we have one person, this huge room, and have one door, how fast do you think it would take for them to jump out of that little escape hatch or whatever? Okay, let's compare that to this example here, where you have the same person, but now we have 2 doors here. There's a door behind here, another door here, a door here, a door here, a door here. Okay, so we've dramatically increased the exits for this particular room, and I hope everybody would be able to very clearly understand that this scenario would be a huge advantage. It would be advantageous to try to get out of this room quickly. Okay, so they have all of these different areas that they can get out of. Also, if they had to get into this room and they were outside, they can go through any one of these to get into the room. So either direction, the travel through the walls would be very easy here, whereas in this particular scenario it would be a lot harder. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Again, we're going to try to explain why that is through mathematics. Okay, and so really when we're talking about like the available resources to move into or out of a cell, we're looking at the cell's membrane, right? And the cell in this case is a cuboidal cell, or this model of a cell I should say is a cube shape. And so when we look at where the cell membrane would be located, it'd be on each of these sides, right? So on this side, if we looked at this being completely covered in phospholipids and proteins, and that being the area of the cell that has the capability to have things enter or leave it, we could calculate what the potential surface area was for this one side, right? And so how we do that is very simple math. You do 1 times 1. That's it. And so this side right here would be 1 centimeter cubed, right? And in this particular example, I'm using centimeters. Again, just make sure you follow along with the units on any example on a test. But right here, this would be 1 centimeter squared. I hope that makes sense. And of course, we have 6 sides. So we do 1 centimeter squared here, 1 centimeter squared here, 1 here, and we have all 6 sides. The total surface area, the total area of that cell membrane would be 6 centimeters squared. And if we doubled the size of this cell, we'd have a lot more membrane, right? That makes sense, I hope. And so following the same math, do 2 times 2 for this one side. So this would be 4 centimeters squared. Another 4 here, another 4 here. We have 6 sides, so overall we'd have 24. And again, In this particular example, I'm using millimeters, so it'll be millimeters squared. So much more surface area as the cell gets larger. Okay, so now let's look at another scenario. Let's say we have that same one exit and one person, and we compare that to a scenario where we dramatically increase the number of people in the room. Okay, so all of these people now have to get through that one exit, and you could imagine that that would be really create a bottleneck. It would slow things down quite a bit. Maybe this individual jumps in, gets stuck. These guys would not be able to get out, and it would slow down our time if we were trying to time how quickly everybody could get out of the room. In addition, you guys think about it also not only from exiting standpoints, but imagine if we had delivered food to all these people and we only had this small little door. Okay, so things coming in this way also would be limited, of course, by that restriction to the number of exits or entrances that we have. So I hope that that makes sense. Obviously, this would be a really big advantage if you're trying to get out one person, get out in terms of speed. This over here would create a much slower condition, right? Or would prevent some of these guys from leaving or potentially resources entering. Okay, so now, like I just explained, resources are really important. We have mitochondria that need a consistent supply of sugars to be able to manufacture ATP. We have all different organelles that need constant supply of amino acids or lipid resources. So your monomers need to be able to be delivered to all of those organelles. And when we look at this example, I know it's kind of silly, I'm using people in an escape room, but when you look at this as if it was a cell, each one of these is a potential organelle, and it needs to get its particular resources in order to function properly. Okay, so if we didn't get those resources there, or the cell wasn't able to eliminate waste in an efficient manner, then the cell is going to die. It's not going to be able to function properly. It's not going to be able to do its duty or its job for your body, and we'd have a state where that cell would eventually waste away. Okay, so let's look at that volume, which is what we just tried to explain to you. Volume, again, in terms of cell, is going to be the interior components of the cell, what needs to be supported on the inside of the cell. So in this particular example, to figure out the volume, we do length times width times height, which is 1 centimeter cubed, and that would be the volume of this cube. Okay, and again, that would be like having one person inside the escape room. If I come over here and I look at this, we have 2 times 2 times 2, so 2 times 2 times 2, and that gets us to 8 millimeters cubed in this particular example. So that would be like 8 people in this room. And that might not make too much sense right now, but where we're going is to put these things together to figure out a ratio, which is called surface area to volume ratio, and that really is hugely and it provides a tremendous explanation for how these things function, and hopefully you'll be able to make sense of that when we finish. Okay, so over here, okay, to put everything in to perspective here, we have 6 units of cell membrane. So that would be like, in our example, 6 doors. And over here we have 1 unit of volume. That would be like 1 person, 6 doors. I hope everybody's making sense of that analogy. Then over here we have a situation where we had 24 units of cell surface area. Okay, when we add up all 6 sides, we did that calculation earlier. And then inside we have 8 people. So in order to really compare apples to apples here, we're going to reduce that fraction. Okay, so we're going to have 3 units of surface area to every 1 person that's inside. Now when we compare that, this is 1 person, 6 exits. This is 1 person, 3 exits. I hope that it's very clear at this point that this scenario is going to provide more, double the exits or entrances than this scenario. So by the simple fact that this is smaller, we're able to create a scenario where you have double the opportunities to move things in or out of the cell. And this is hugely advantageous. Okay, so let's just review everything that we've tried to go through and make sure that everybody's clear on it. So more surface area means that there's more exits and entrances. There's more transport opportunities. More volume means that there's more organelles. So in our example, we use people there, okay, but those organelles need to be supported. Cells with a larger surface area to volume ratio are going to be more efficient, meaning that cells that have more membrane, more potential integral proteins, more channels, windows, doors, in our analogy, are going to be able to live efficiently and be able to, manage homeostatic balance in their bodies much better. Okay, and so cells that have too low of a surface area to volume ratio, they're not going to be able to do these things. They're not going to be able to support their internal structures, not going to be able to produce as much energy or hormones or whatever that particular cell's job is, because of the lack of cellular membrane structure, the lack of the ability to move these things into or out of the cell. Okay, so just to kind of drive home this point one more time, okay, it's really advantageous to be small if we're talking about a cell. And of course, we have thousands and thousands of unicellular organisms, all of which tend to be very, very small. And we'll look at a couple of them throughout the year. But almost every cell out there in the world is incredibly, incredibly small. And I hope we know why now. Okay, so if you're asking the question, why are cells small? Because it's advantageous, right? It's essential for these things to be small. Being small is the GOAT if you're a cell. And over here, if you're too big, you're not going to last. You're not going to survive. And from an evolutionary standpoint, that's why to this day, there's very few cells that are able to be maintained that are large. And we see the vast majority of cells on the planet are very, very small. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed the video.